Oh, these are old.
Oh, okay.
If I'm,
Super. I
if,
thought they were the sunshine earrings.
No, I haven't had much speeding time lately with packing.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
welcome everybody to the new year and a new year of meetings. I'm so excited to introduce Jan Carlson, our president. Will start us off with announcements.
Hi there, everybody, and Happy New Year. Um, I don't think Grace is here yet, so I'm gonna make an announcement for Grace. We've got the spring retreat coming up March 19th through March 23rd. For anybody who hasn't been there, it's at the Camp Wapogosset near Amory, Wisconsin, just across the border, from Taylor's Falls. So it's a little, about an hour from the Twin Cities area. And that's a fun time. You can go any of the days. And we are looking for teachers for the retreat. We'd like to have on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, each day we'd like to have at least one teacher. So if there's something that you've been working on that you think is fun, and again, be careful about patterns, whether, if it's your pattern, that's fine. If it's someone else, we have to buy the patterns or get permission from the instructor. But if there's something that you'd like to teach, we would love to have you do it. And I think that's all. I think over to Hannah to talk about Bead Estates.
Yeah, let's find Hannah. Where are you? Wave, Hannah.
She's
Sorry about
There
that.
she
yeah.
is.
Oh, there you are.
I was just putting in the bead retreat information into our chat. What am I talking about?
Oh, you're talking about the Bead Estates, the speaker. We were gonna ask about interest.
Oh, right. Okay. So one of my dear friends from college, Wayne William Finnegar II, has offered to speak with us about dealing with estate law. And the reason this came about is because a dear friend of mine recently lost her battle with cancer, and she has a 45-year collection of beads that her husband, who knows nothing about beads, he's a very accomplished doctor, and so it's just not his thing. So he is sort of trying to work his way through it. And so I spoke to my friend Wayne about coming to speak with us about things that we may want to consider when we consider our huge collections, and whether or not they should be donated, whether or not they should be sold off, how to deal with them, how to put them in wills, and all of that. Not really that much fun, but probably somewhat important kind of things. So he has agreed and the board has approved it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a post in Facebook asking for you guys to suggest interview questions. I think the way we're going to deal with it is that Rochelle and I will pose a few questions, maybe 5, maybe 6, depends on how long it takes, to him as a Facebook Live, and we're going to give him time in beforehand to actually write down answers to these. So the reason that I'm speaking to you guys today is because Jan rightfully noted that not all of us do Facebook. And so if you guys, and we're not going to take these questions now, but if you guys have specific questions that you would want to ask to Wayne about estate sale and dealing with, or estate law, and dealing with your collections. We're going to specify it, not just beads, but craft collections. So it's not going to be about your clothing. It's not going to be about your shoes. It's not going to be about your fine jewelry. We're dealing with really just the craft aspect of it. If you have questions that you would like to see posed to Wayne regarding these, I'm going to put my email address into the chat, and please email them to me. And we will pick out, well, I'll probably actually give most of them over to Wayne and ask him to pick his favorites to discuss. And then we will post them to him as a question and answer session. However, they will have been given to him in advance so that he can do some research. He is out of South Carolina, so there are not going to be any specifics to Minnesota law. He has not taken the bar in Minnesota, so he can't speak to specifics, or to Oregon or wherever we happen to be, but he's going to tell us about some generalities. Is that a word?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But he's gonna, yeah. So anyway, once again, I'm gonna put my email into the chat there, and if you have a question you would like to see posed to him, then please email me at any time. I think we're going to be doing, I think we're looking at the end of March to give us time, because of course taxes become a big deal too. So the end of March, before Miss Rochelle goes away to her Japan trip, and before we all have to do our taxes, we're going to do this live one evening. It'll probably only be about an hour long. So I think that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and Hannah, I just throw out an idea for that, because the question I had is, if I donate my beads, say, to the Bead Society, are there tax implications?
Right. So all of that are great questions to ask. You know, what kind of paperwork has to be involved? All that kind of thing is good questions to ask him. And once again, we'll probably start with about 5 questions and see how long it takes. I don't want it to go on too long, but we want to try to really deal with the most important ones, because you know the bottom line is that we don't get any younger, even though I'd like to.
And it's going to be an evening Let's Be Live, right?
Well, we're not going to do any beating live, but yes.
No, but it's going to be in the evening. It's not going to
Yes.
be on a Saturday afternoon. It's going to be an
No.
extra one during a time kind of like this, where it's a lot more
Right.
convenient for everyone to come, like a Thursday evening or something.
And again,
Exactly
we will
right.
record it.
Yes,
And we
will
will record it.
We will put it on our YouTube, and it'll also be on Facebook on live. And I think that we were looking actually at Thursday, March
January
27th,
23rd.
I think, was the day that Wayne had suggested, so that we have time still to deal with taxes and before Miss Rochelle leaves.
And can I also note that you might be interested in hearing from me, since I've bought a dozen estates, and I'm the one that, if anybody donates anything to the Bead Society, I'm the one that picks it up and sorts it and prices it to sell. So I have been very much involved for the last 6 or 8 years in bead estates.
I think it would be great to hear from you as well. Absolutely. However, we are sort of retaining Wayne as an attorney, and he is an attorney. So I'd like to focus really on what he has to say.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning that I'm in there too.
I love it. I did not know that. I'm glad to hear it.
You have so many talent stores. What don't you do?
Indeed.
Somebody was saying that to me this weekend, and I'm going, I have 5 kilns, I do stained glass, I do basketry, I do mosaics, I do da 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 da.
Oh my
Clearly,
gosh.
she's easily bored because she likes to do lots of different things.
Crafting ADD? Or
Yeah, I think so.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. How many of us fall into that category? I think I'm one of them too.
So we'll have a really good estate sale whenever I kick the bucket.
Oh my gosh. No, 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 no. Why don't you have it before you kick the bucket? That way you can run it and teach somebody else how to do it because you're going to have to find a replacement to do this when you decide to give this up. Just as I'm always looking for committee help, everybody is. So, as the representative for UMBS, maybe start thinking of some people that could help, take over and assist you on these things as well.
Well, and that's why I'm doing the getting rid of the Swarovski sale because I have a whole closet full of Swarovski.
Yeah.
And what's your address?
Arbor, Minnesota.
In Rochelle.
Yep.
The lady is dropping off the dress on Wednesday.
Oh, okay, super duper. I have Wednesday and Thursday off. Otherwise, I'm at the mall on Friday and Saturday, yeah, Friday and Saturday. So super duper, are we excited or what for our upcoming new meetings? We have Kim tonight, but before we get there, I do want to have you put on your calendar our Let's Bead Live coming up. It is Saturday, the 18th of January at 1 o'clock Central Time, and we have Andrea Bieber. She is an amazing designer. She's been working besides her own Andrea Bieber designs. She also is an art beads designer, a bead-alon designer. So if you go to Tucson, she will have her booth right inside the ballroom door at the True Bead True Blue. But she's going to be teaching us all about. She's an amazing stringer, designer, bracelet designs, multiple strand bracelets with multiple techniques, the proper way to use all your tools, how to crimp things properly, how to get all the things to line up right, to balance right, weighting, all the different wrappy loops types of things, briolets, to make a great three-dimensional media bracelet. And she'll most likely have kits for sale as well, but she'll also have an ingredient list for those of you who desire to go through your stash. So that's on the 18th, and you can find her. All the information will be up soon. And then for February, for our Colorful Mania, on the 10th, we don't have our meeting the first Monday in February because of those of you who are in Tucson. We want to let you have an enjoyment time and then come home and tell us all about it and show off your pretties. So our meeting is on the 10th of February. And Betty Cox is our speaker that night, all about the color, the chaos, the craziness, the cornucopia of how to, bring bright and colorfulness to your designs in your life in the middle of winter. So put all that on your calendar. And the rest of the spring and the summer is also on the calendar on umbs.org. So check it out. There's so many fun things. So that way you won't miss a meeting if you actually want to be there in person. And so, but we're so darn excited. Are you all ready? We have tonight Kim Leahy. I worked with her for a long time with Toho and Starman. She's a self-taught artist, and she said she loves odd objects and the love of all things weird. She's been published in Bead and Button beadwork magazines, as well as accomplished books and bead and button patterns. Kim was a Starman trendsetter for 3 years and is owner of Esther Beadwork. When not beading, she's an avid mountain biker, Nordic skiing, and camper. She lives in Bend, Oregon with her husband and a lazy cat. You didn't tell us what your cat's name was, though.
Hannah.
Oh,
Not Hannah, Hannah. She's not very sophisticated.
I love it.
Somebody.
And so it's all yours. Take it
Oh,
away, Kim.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. I did a little slideshow about my bead journey because feel like it's just a tad bit different. Probably, I mean, there's always overlaps of how people have gotten into beading, but I am pretty self-taught, and I'll just go ahead and share my screen and we'll start with that. Can you guys all see this?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
sure do.
So, Rochelle already told me my name is Kim Leahy. This mat up on the screen, this is my world, and it's like this way more than it's not. I'm pretty sure a lot of you can probably relate to that. But I try to clean my studio and I get it cleaned, and literally like 2 hours later, it looks like this again. So we're just going to call it creative chaos. But I think that this is pretty much how I live. I started out making little girls dress up clothes. So my cursor here, this is actually my daughter. I think she was 3. So I would go to thrift stores and buy like skirts and velvet dresses and cut them up and put elastic on them and stitch sequins and ruffles. And I was kind of sewing. I like handwork. I don't like machines. So I would do these, they'd have gloves that matched that had the sequins and lace and ruffles, and I made crowns and all of that. And then one lady in my kid's school invited me to do a trunk show at her home where they had a lot of artists selling their wares. There was a gal next to me selling the bracelets, like right here, with the Swarovski crystals and the Bali silver. And my brain goes, wow, because kind of rude, but I go, geez, I think a monkey could do that. And she was selling out. Well, I was completely wrong about that because I couldn't do it. I learned the technique of crimping and how to put on a toggle and what products to use, but I didn't seem to have the knack of laying out the crystals and laying out the product in something that I thought was unique and different. So I was a little bit wrong about the monkey, but oops, sorry about that. This is going. It ended up being a little harder than I thought it was. So I kind of lost interest in that. We spent the summers in Hood River. So I went into a bead store and she had these amazing pieces of beadwork in the case, like peyote work with patterns. And I'm like, wow, do you teach classes? And she's like, no, just go pick up a Bead and Button magazine and figure it out. I'm like, okay. So I went to Portland because this was in Hood River. We didn't have a lot. And I went to a bead store. I picked up a Bead and Button magazine here. It was the June 2003 issue. And I flipped through it. Now, keep in mind, I know nothing about beading. I could stitch a little bit. I thought this necklace is beautiful. I'm going to make that. So I went to the supply list, and of course, it was all 15s. It was crystals. It was like kind of a right angle weave and netting and peyote. And I thought, okay. So I bought all the beads, took it back to Hood River. It took me all summer, a lot of swearing, a lot of throwing beads across the room. Ended up going to Walmart and buying big old ugly e-beads and figuring out peyote. And then I'm like, well, I don't know what they're talking about with this step up thing. I can't figure that out. So we're just going to go around in a circle. So that's what I did. And this was my very, very first necklace I ever made. And so I keep it as kind of a humble reminder of where I started. And actually, I'm kind of proud of it. I took on a pretty big thing for my absolute very first time beading. So I drank the Kool-Aid big time. I fell in love with this and pretty much unloaded all my crystals and silver and started buying beads. Oops, sorry. Technically challenged. I started out with very simple things. As you can see, most of these pieces are all peyote. These are some of the very basic things I did, a little picot on top, and I got into Toho beads pretty quickly. One of my friends in Hood River owned a bead store and she sold only Toho. And she talked to me about those. So I would end up buying them from Tambrook Beads in Boring, Oregon. And I think a few people might know Kim from that store before she closed it. So pretty much all of my early beginnings have been with Toho. So these are just, they're all peyote. I would find things to stitch on top. I would find old vintage earrings to make clasp out of, but it still was pretty much just, I was a one-stitch pony there for a while. Then I wanted to do some bead embroidery, and my daughter had drawn this picture. And so I'm like, what if I traced it on some fabric and I did bead embroidery? So this is titled Monkey, and it is probably some of the worst bead embroidery I have ever seen in my life. But again, this sits on my desk as a reminder. And I like to tell people too, all of us did not start out looking like Sherry Serafini or Holly Bean or some of these other amazing bead artists. We all started with our beads crammed together, things not right. We start with inexpensive beads because we didn't want to spend the money. And this is a big lesson learned for me. And I think the bracelet's really cute. The technique is very poor, but it's how I learned. Here's my... So then I had two cousins that upcycled fur coats. So they turned them into pillows and throws and stuff and sold them at designer shows. So they started giving me all the buttons to work with in my jewelry. So I incorporated them in, but I still didn't have a whole lot of skills as far as stitches. It was still pretty much peyote, a little netting, and here maybe I kind of figured out how to encase some buttons and make a toggle, but still was pretty basic beadwork, but it was really fun to work with these incredible buttons. I still have a big pile of them. And then I just started getting into a few more kind of thing. I finally learned right angle weave. So I did that, put in a crystal. I found a single stringed pattern in a book here and just made it wider using an artist glass piece. On this one over here, doing some leaves, again, still peyote. I started dabbling in using different products in peyote stitch, because here again, it was pretty much the only few stitches I knew. So I started incorporating some cubes and different product to make it look more than what it was. So it's kind of where I was going. Then I wanted to sell the beads. I worked for a guy at Intergalactic, and I said, you don't have a good seed bead vendor here. Let me sell you my stash. Let me sell my stash, because I was getting quite the collection. So I started Esther Beadwork. It is now I took on a partner. She does all the selling of the beads at the shows, and she does a phenomenal job. She has a site on Facebook if you are looking for beads, leather, you name it, she's got it. Then I had talked about Kim Tamaran. You see here a picture of Mount Hood. If you know Kim and you follow her on Facebook, you see multiple pictures of Facebook or multiple pictures of Mount Hood from her. Hers are a lot better, but this is kind of my tribute to her. She used to let me come to her shop when she owned Tambrook Beads, and I could hand pick out all my beads and just go through like the bins, and it was just like such a holiday. So she called me one day and asked me if I wanted to do the Toho Challenge. That was in 2014, and it was the second one that was offered. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm good enough. She goes, yeah, you are. And then I talked to her about, I had heard about the Starman Trendsetter, and I was kind of wanting to go teach at Bead and Button, but I was scared. I didn't think I had enough going for me. I didn't think I knew enough. And she just said, what's the worst that can happen to you? They can say no. So I applied to Bead and Button, and I applied to the Starman Trendsetter, and I got accepted into both. So then there was no stopping me after that. My second Toho challenge was just last year. This was a stretch for me. Rochelle and I have talked about it. I got the beads in the mail, and they are like every single color that I do not use. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a true challenge for me. So I'm looking at them in the box and I'm like, I don't even know how to use these colors. So I'm a green, blues, purples, earthy type colors. So taking a lesson from another artist that I learned from Sherry Serafini, I just started making components. I made leaves, I made flowers. The flowers up here, I'm a huge fan of playing with Tyvek and really unusual product. So I thought, let me start with that. And of course, I love eyeballs. So I started with those two things, set it aside. And then I just started creating these little leaves and just different things that I had a big pile of. And I knew I wanted to make another belt because it had been many years. So I thought, let me just go a little fancier. It started out with a shiny background and it didn't do the beads very much. It kind of took away from the beads. When I ended it, I loved these combination of colors so much. I think I bought more of pretty much every one just to use. And I can't tell you in my newest designs coming up how many of them have yellow and orange in them, which I hardly ever use. So thank you, Rochelle, for that. And it just kind of tells you that these really
Pleasure.
are challenges. Hmm?
My pleasure, anytime.
It's fun to challenge yourself, and I really enjoyed it. Like this one was really, really fun, and it definitely stretched me. Some of my designs that Starman printed when I was a trendsetter. Here again, I talked to Rochelle and Hannah about it. And I'll show you later on in my presentation. I look at other people's work. I don't copy it, but I get ideas from it. So the first year I was a trendsetter, they send me these beads that I had never seen. And I'm like, I can't go to Pinterest and I can't go to Google Images to get ideas because they haven't been seen yet. So here again, it was another stretch of what was I going to do with this? And I have no formal schooling in art or anything. So I did a lot of playing. This first picture on top, when I went to Bead and Button for my very first year, this was on a billboard. And it was like, oh my God, I've made it. This is so cool. So these are a couple of the things that Starman has printed, and they're still available. They're simple, but they're really fun to make. And I've really enjoyed being a trendsetter, and I've learned a lot because you have to just sit down and figure things out. And that's been really fun. When I first started designing, I went through a whole year of I'm not going to look at anybody else's patterns. I'm not going to do anybody else's designs. I'm going to do a whole year with only my things. And there's some pretty bad stuff out there. So then my very first publication that I sent to Bead and Button, well, I sent them a bunch of stuff. I got very determined. I followed Kim's words to the T, and I just kept sending stuff, going, what, they can just tell me no. It's like, it doesn't, they're not taking my birthday away. So the first thing that got published was this one that I named Elizabeth. They took the dangle away, but that was my first publication. And then I kept trying for beadwork. I wanted to get in beadwork as well. I must have tried for 2 or 3 years and I kept getting turned down from them. So finally I got accepted into beadwork, and I think this might have been the first one. I'm not really sure. Then the dream came true and I made the cover of beadwork, and it was the last or the second to the last that was ever published. So I barely squeaked that little honor out, but it was pretty spectacular to get the phone call going, we're going to put you on the cover. For those of you that know me or know me really well, I'm a kind of a lazy beater. I'm a little bit of a goof off. I love to be outside. So I had learned kumihimo and I did one rope and I'm like, I am not stringing all of these beads. This is mind numbing. I really struggled with it. So I'm like, well, what if I put in some ribbons and some fibers and some yarn, because I was just too lazy to string beads. And this is the rope that came out. And I'm like, okay, this is really cool. So then I just added the flowers and the leaves, but this came out just out of sheer laziness. So those of you that are like that, there's hope. There's designs that I've created that in theory are really great. I made this one. It was the first and last big collar I've ever done. It came out beautiful. I loved it. It does not lay right. It looks terrible on, and it just basically sits on my desk. So there has been some big fails for great ideas. Some designs come together very quickly for me. This one here that was actually on the cover, I sat down, I started playing with the product. I moved a few things around a couple times, but I literally had this design probably in a couple of hours, and I was instantly just really happy with it. And I'm like, this is great. I love it. Everything's good. The guy on the left here, Voyager, I was in Tucson. I bought some the spoon handles that they were linking together, and they put like a crystal in between or something. 3 to 4 years, I kept looking at them. What do I do with this? And I wanted it to be different. I didn't want it to be the two spoons linked together. And I kept putting things there. Nothing struck me. Every time I do it, it was like, nope, put it back in the bin. About 4 years later, I picked up a Macu cab. It was probably the first one I ever bought from her. I laid it next to that spoon, and I'm like, okay, I have an idea. So this bracelet has been probably one of my more prouder moments, and something that I have sold a ton of. And I've taught 6 classes at Bead and Button on that bracelet. So I just let things sit on my desk, and eventually, not always, but most of the time, an idea does come. I love using other artists' pieces, like love it. I'm on Facebook art shows buying constantly. I just think it adds a unique concept to the jewelry. So you probably recognize a bunch of these artists, but they're just things I've incorporated into various pieces of work. I also like odd fabrics and odd objects. I had talked about these rings that I bought a boatload of, and the background of these earrings is paper. These are sequins and buttons, so just very unusual, different things. This one is done with a velvet, like upholstery fabric and some tie-back. This one here again is upholstery and wire ribbon. I'm not seeing, oops, this other one, because my screen's here. Let me see if I can move this. Oh, this is a piece of clay that I actually dabbled in and made. So I'm always looking for things that I don't see out there every day. I love buttons. So if I can put a button on something and make a design, I'm going to do that. So these are just some plastic buttons I buy at Joann's and made the earrings. Just different things that you can do, things you can pick up in a craft store. I live in a small town. We don't have a lot of things to pick from for like high-end bead stores and stuff. So buttons are a good avenue for me. I just like things that are different. So this one I had showed earlier, this is made from a zipper. This one is using velvet ribbon. This is using paper again for the main focal. This is actual real leather. This is using some ribbon. And here again, the tie back, all these on the side, I've incorporated that into a lot of the work. And then this pair of earrings, the background on that right in here, this is actually bubble wrap. So I found out playing with that and melting a lot of plastics down here in the basement, figured out how to work with that as a fabric for some beadwork that you don't see every day. Just some different things that I've used. Here again, I like found weird objects. Some of these aren't that weird. You know, here we had the spoon. Here's like a knife fork hand or a fork handle. Here's the top of a knife. We just put the hole in it. Some filigree and some shrinkets. Another one, shrinkets, metal from just different metal artists, wire frames. Here I've got my tie vac and then an old vintage clock face. So I just pick up some odds and ends and see what I can come up with. some of the things that motivate me, like sometimes ideas just come to you. You look at a piece of product and you're like, wow, I know what to do with that. A lot of times I just draw a blank and I'm not feeling very creative. So I'll go on Google Images or I'll go on Pinterest and I'll look at jewelry and then I'll think, how can I turn that into beadwork? So I remembered these wrap bracelets. I always thought they were super fun, you know, the leather, and then they'd have some metal and some chain. And I'm like, how could we turn that to beadwork? And this was the result of that. So these are just some of my inspiration. I don't dream them all up out of thin air. Here's another one I did. Thought this bracelet was really pretty. It came out kind of cool as a bracelet. It never really laid great. So it was something I didn't really run with, but it was kind of fun to play with it and try to make something out of it. Another metal piece that was just metal, I turned into beadwork with rings and flowers. Go through these. I loved this yarn necklace. I thought it was so fun. So I turned it into beadwork over here with a herringbone stitch and some tops. This was one of my favorite. I really, really like this metal bracelet. And of course, I love raku. So I just used the raku center, added some fringe, and this is kind of my take on that metal bracelet. Another one of my favorites. This is a diamond and sapphire necklace. I think it's Arpol or somebody like that. I guess a famous jewelry designer in the precious metals. So I'm like, I can do this out of zipper from Joann's. So it took some doing, took some figuring out, but I did figure it out. But that's where that idea came from. This is clay and wood, and I turned it in with using a button, shrink flower. Here I made the big shrink flower, and then the little attachments in here are Tyvek. So this flower as well as over here is the Tyvek. So that's where I got that inspiration for that piece. This one too, it was metal, but I love the colors. I love how it all came together, and I thought it would look fabulous in beads. Then I got obsessed with Miriam Haskell. I don't know if you know her, but she was a designer from quite a while back that pretty much designed costume jewelry during a time when not everyone could afford the real jewels. So she became very famous, but I love her work. So I was kind of obsessed with turning some of her pieces into beadwork, even though hers are beadwork, but she does a lot of wire, she does a lot of filigree. It's not actually stitched beadwork. So I spent a year or two doing a bunch of her stuff. And I'll just show you a couple of them. This was one of my favorites. So this is her piece, and this is what I did with it. Another one. So I kind of copy, but hers are different. This one was really my favorite, although it never really was a great kit, but I thought it was really fun how the bracelet came out from her. I think hers were wood. And the last one of I like the vintage looks. I always want to say, like, I get my inspirations from nature and all these different things. I was at the Oregon coast, and any of you have been there, and you happen to be fortunate enough to hit a tide pool. This is truly what it looks like. I wish that was my inspiration for this bracelet. It wasn't. It was the product. It was the Tyvek that I had painted. And when I melted it, it gave me these same textures as this here. So I made this bracelet, and then I found the photo to go with it. So I'm a little bit of a reverse engineer. I'm big on just product. I love beads. I love color. I like unusual shapes. I will use just about any bead that I can find and try to figure out how to use it. I'm highly motivated by a beautiful color like these purple beads. I saw those and I'm like, oh, wow, I can't wait to play with those. And here again, very unusual product. I found some, I did not buy these, but thimbles, they're still niggling around in the back of my head of what to do with thimbles. Love buttons, love eyeballs, just anything you can find out there. Here's some fabric that I've beaded around, flowers, anything. I pretty much use just about anything. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. So kind of what I would say to people that I think you guys all might be a little more advanced, but that are just getting into beading is use your inspiration where it comes from for you. Like I remember when I started and I would read like a Heidi Kimmel, is that her, how you pronounce her last name? How she was so inspired by nature and this, and I'm like, it just didn't do it for me. So just pick up whatever motivates you and just keep going with it. And don't be afraid to try. I mean, you saw some of my big fails and some of my successes, and it's all good. So that's my show.
Thank you so much.
Questions?
Yes, actually, Nanita would like to know, what do you use to, can you hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay. What do you use to cut the flatware is a question from Nanita.
I use a jeweler saw, just, you know, a really inexpensive one to cut the knife heads and then also the straight ones. But the ones that are bent for the other bracelet, I have a gal on Etsy that I send them to and she bends them for me. I don't have the means to bend them. And then I just drill a hole in the top of the knife handle. I put it in a vise and drill the hole. My husband's a contractor, so we have tools for that. But just a inexpensive jewelry saw, I think I picked it up on, I don't know, maybe Harbor Freight or something.
Oh, look at those beads behind you, all those
Oh,
beads.
yeah. So I showed people that were here early. I used to sell to the trade and do the beads shows with Intergalactic. This was kind of what's left over. I mean, I had probably 4 or 5 more bins, and I've been using them and trying to get rid of them. I work in my basement, so I've kind of painted the walls and put down some rugs. It's a little bit chilly down here tonight, but I can show you my wall of beads here that I hang up, so it helps me use them, because if they're in a drawer, I'm not going to use them. And then you can kind of see back there bins. I have beads in there, and then kind of up here all the way the back, the little drawers from Harbor Freight, those are where I keep like the 2-hole beads and different things like that, so that I can just go and pull colors easier.
You store them by shape or by color or by size or all of each one?
Just by the bead, so by shape. So like I have a row of crescents, and it goes across crescents until I run out, and then it's like, you know, cabochons and triangles. So and then I glue one on the outside, what it looks like.
Oh my gosh, just like the screw on the at the hardware store.
Yes,
On the edge of the
yeah.
thing. Oh my
And
gosh, how smart you are.
oh, well, we have to. And then I put a little card in every bin, the number, the name of it, and the number and where I bought it, because I cannot remember. I mean, and most of them are Starman, but you know, just to make sure that I reorder the same thing. So I put a card in there of what it is.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
I mean, I am a hot mess for the most part, and my studio's a wreck, and I work under some really piles of things, but my beads are actually, they're very organized. They may not look it, but I can pretty much find everything I have for the most part. There are those things that I'm like, you know I bought that 5 years ago, and I don't remember where I put it, but I eventually find it. So it's actually pretty organized.
Don't you find, Kim, I find on the table where I bead, when it gets too cluttered, I'm like, okay, before I do anything else, I have to like straighten it up a little.
I
you
do,
know,
yeah.
Make some space. So the clutter gets to a certain level and you go, okay,
Well, then if you have more, like I have sometimes 5 projects going on at the same time. Especially right now, I'm working on things, I do the Orlando retreat. And I've got all those patterns, but then I'm missing some product. So I put it aside and then I'm like, well, let me work on this. And then I'm like, what does that bead go with this one or does it go with that other kit? But so I'm like, okay, I got to clean it up because I'm even getting the product mixed up now. But we figure it out.
Can you tell us more about the Orlando retreat? Is there any space for people still to sign up or is it all full?
No, it is. I can put it in the chat. I don't have her contact information. I could try to get it to Rochelle, but Carol Harmon does it. It's the Orlando Bead Retreat. They do have a Facebook site and they are accepting attendees right now. It fills up fast. It's a beautiful bead show. It's not a show. It's small by standards of a bead show. So like not Tucson size or not the old Bead and Button. I think last year there were 200 people and there's a small vending site. But she brings in some really name artists. I think Holly Bean's going to be there this year. Erin Seminetti was there last year. Sherry Serafini's always there. Nancy Kane. She gets in some, really big names. And it's just a really nice show. So I will try to get that information, but it is the Orlando Bead Society.
What are you teaching there? Because the
I
new
am-
patterns will be available like 3 months after that, you said, or so?
Yeah, we try to respect retreat attendees. They do pay a lot to take these classes and then to be able to just go and buy the kits, off Etsy that next day is kind of unfair. I'm teaching 3 classes. I don't teach the day classes because I have a booth. I am teaching this necklace right here. It is a series of rings that can be asymmetrical. And I'll stand up because it's got fringe all the way down. And you can make
fun.
it symmetrical. And so I've wrapped the rings with these plastic rings I bought and I wrap them with a metallic floss and then add the beads on the edges and then herringbone. It's a free form necklace, which doesn't always work for some people, but I will have instructions that tell you exactly how I did it, and then you can do it however you want. And then the zipper necklace I showed you, I will be teaching the bracelet, which is a little more attractive. I think whoops, I'm always backwards. I'm working on a second colorway for that one. It's right here. It's gonna be a little more.
They're so cool.
Oh,
It's
that's
so
fun.
fun to wear. It really looks cool. The necklace was a little formal. So I thought the bracelet is a little. And then my third one is a headband. So kind of hard to see it. This is a very poor prototype. I threw it together in a couple of days to wear it at the retreat, just thinking it would be fun to wear it. And everybody wanted it as a class. So I need to step up my beadwork because I literally just threw it together, but it looks kind of cute on. It's kind of like a crown.
Mhm.
So
That's fun.
those are my 3 classes. But
Sounds like a lot of fun.
they're always fun, aren't they? Bead retreats.
They sure are. And so earlier we were also talking about designing and how we come up with it, how you start with it. You said before on your challenge, you come up with and just started with components. Is that how you always start your designs or how do you normally?
That I actually learned from Sherry Serafini. I'd never done that. I always just, for me, I'll find something I want to work with. Let me grab one right here. I'm just sitting on my desk. I really wanted to start doing some with gimp wire. Like I'm not very good at that. Hannah's the master at this stuff. So I played with this one and then I had bought this metal piece. So this is probably about the 4th version of this, where it started out as kind of I kind of like the little hippie look. So this was the first one, and I'm like, yeah, it just kind of didn't work for me. Like, I think it's really fun.
I like all the flowers.
I do too, but I think I don't think it's for everybody, and the sequins on the edge. So I thought I needed to reform it a little bit. So I ended up with this. So I had the hippie thing in my head, and then it kind of came out a little more fancy, but I will wear the hippie bracelet.
I
So
would,
most of the time for me, it's some kind of product or it's something, it's if I don't sleep great at night, so I am on images a lot. I'm on Pinterest just looking at I look at a lot of like fabric work, of people doing different types of beadwork on fabric, and then think of how can that be turned into a piece of jewelry, or how can that be turned into something that somebody wants to make. And they're making like clothes with it or blankets or something. I'm just looking at the beadwork, or felting. What are they doing with that maybe I can make something different. And then I like I fell into the Tyvek. I'm not sure how I fell into that, but I spent a lot of time researching it and figuring out how to dabble in it. And my husband's a general contractor, so in the basement was this great big huge roll of Tyvek. And so I don't know how if you guys think like I do, but I'm like, oh my God, free product, right? So I'm cutting it up and I'm painting it and I'm melting it and I've got heat guns and I've got irons and I'm like doing all these things. And I finally got with the putting it between parchment paper and hovering an iron over it, I got a nice texture that I really liked. So when I beat it on it, the paint chipped.
uh-oh.
So I
What kind
kept
of
playing.
paint were you using?
It was Tyvek,
No,
like
what kind of paint?
just acrylics.
Okay.
So I reached out to a couple artists I know, Gail Grossman Moore being one of them, going, what do you think? What can you use? And her first question was, why do you want to paint on Tyvek? And I go, because nobody else is doing it. So I finally did enough playing around and found out that the one that actually goes on the outside of homes, like if you drive in neighborhoods and you'll see Tyvek written on it, it's a water barrier. So therefore the paint is not going to stick to it. But the FedEx packages that you get documents sent to you in, that's more of a paper Tyvek, and the paint sticks to that. So I played with those for a while, and I would go into the post office and just take like 2 packages and bring them home and paint. And then I finally found out I can buy the paper without the priority written all over it and stuff like that. So I just kept playing with it and then figured out how I want to melt it. And it always comes out different, but I've got a lot of designs with Tyvek in it because I just think it's the texture of it is so good. Then one night I'm on Pinterest and some gal goes, you can make beads with bubble wrap. And I go, oh, let's give this a try. So I kind of followed her directions. And I'm like, no, you can't make beads with bubble wrap. These were not turning out. But I'm like, I ask a lot of what ifs. What if I painted it and I melted it, kind of like what she recommended, and used it as a fabric? So I actually have these sitting here. So I did, and it makes a great weightless backdrop for earrings. So this is just
Very
bubble
cool.
wrap painted, and
Oh, wow.
you iron it between 2 pieces of parchment paper, and you can use layers, and it's just fun. Like, it's not high end, no, but so
Well, I'm
I,
just imagining fairy wings out of bubble.
yes,
You
yeah.
know, right?
Yep. So I'm just constantly, and then I got into paper clay. So who was saying that they did? I think was it Doris? Does like 9 different things. Like I do paper clay poorly. I paint on paper. I just keep playing until I get something like shrink it. I've dabbled in all of it. It's fun. It's just fun. So that's where my designs come from. A lot of them I just start playing and I'm like, oh, that's cool. But what if I did this instead? So I'm not super methodical. I have an idea in mind and then it usually never comes out exactly how I pictured it. I am a
I love the whole process. So do you teach classes on your process of how, you know, how to paint on your Tyvek instead of giving it to them already done? Or how to do the bubble wraps instead of giving them it done?
I do the bubble wrap. I'm actually teaching that for the Portland Bead Society at our
Okay.
retreat. And I've done some Zoom classes on the bubble wrap, and I'd be happy to do one for you guys. I just teach the technique. The
Mhm.
Tyveks, I'm still kind of playing with that. So I'm not teaching that one yet. I've got some ideas
But
niggling.
yeah, we
around.
got lots of Let's Be Lives. Who doesn't have bubble wrap laying around the house?
I know,
You
and the
know, I mean,
recycling. Yeah.
exactly.
Do you
So
ever
I
do,
think that would be a really fun Let's Be Live.
Yeah,
ever-
and I just do it as a demonstration. You don't even, I mean,
Right, well, make whatever you want out of it afterwards. You know, that's the
right.
whole idea. And then we can post pictures of what everybody made.
You know, the last time I taught the class, some lady goes, did you think about alcohol ink on it? And I go, I thought about it, but I never did anything about it. I don't seem to be very good with the alcohol ink for some reason. So I just got up, dropped some on. I go, let's try it. We're all sitting here. I grabbed it and I dropped it on. And it is so cool because it drops down into the bottom of the bubble, like at the ring. So when you melt it, it stays ringed. So I don't know if you can see this on the earring. It's kind of hard, but there's actually a ring around.
Mm-hmm.
That's the alcohol ink.
Okay.
So yeah, just somebody here again asking. I hadn't tried it yet, but we tried it in the class, and I'm like, okay, this is my new favorite thing. So I've got on my notes to try one in with black alcohol ink and then paint on top of that and see what happens. I go through a lot of paint and I go through a lot of plastics and stuff. But I just buy my paints at Joann's and Michael's and nothing super elaborate, but I do use a lot of metallics.
Do you ever get worried about the toxicity of what you're doing?
I I did. I thought about it. That was about it. I don't do it. It's probably why no, I my basement is very large. It's 2,000 square feet. And also I literally will melt maybe one sheet of bubble wrap or two sheets at a time. That's it. And then I don't do it again for months. And the same with the Tyvek. I don't do very much of it at one time. If I had to do like a big production line, I would probably take it outside or wear a mask just because I don't know. But I don't do enough of it. Like, and I can't smell anything, not that that's the guideline by no means, but it's not like, I mean, I've done things with glue where you're like, whoa, I gotta take this outside or spray paint.
Yeah.
But I know it's not good for you. It's plastic, but I don't feel like I do enough at a single setting.
But I
Because
love the
you can,
recycling aspect of it, upcycling and reusing.
yeah, I mean, a sheet of bubble wrap this big is going to make a lot of earrings or a lot of components. So you really don't have to do it very often. Unless you get excited like I do, like, oh my God, what about this color? And what if I did that? And then I try to either put a mask on or take it outside.
And when you do the bubble wrap, is that also in between parchment?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't really want to put an iron to that plastic. So if you put it
No,
between the parchment paper and you can hear it pop, like it's pretty
that is way
satisfying.
too much
And
fun.
what temperature do you put your iron on, low?
High,
High?
all the way up. Yep. Mhm.
You know we're all gonna go try this, right?
I
Well,
know
of
you are, and I
course.
want to see pictures because I get so many great ideas when people try things. I think it's fun.
Well, but see, that's the thing is we have the rolls of the bubble wrap at Lotus, and I want to make wings.
Oh yeah, yeah. You want me to send you some?
No, 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 no. I've got the bubble wrap. I've got parchment paper. You know,
Yeah.
I need the right size table that I can pull out the iron on, you know?
I use my ironing board.
I don't have one of those. I have the little one that the arms go in so you can do sleeves and cuffs, but I don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
a normal ironing board.
You just put a towel on the table.
Oh, right. That means you
Yeah.
have to clean the table off first. So that's all I'm saying is find the table space.
You know, Rochelle, I am not above doing it on the floor with a towel.
Now I
oh,
like
yeah.
the way you're cooking. All right.
I mean, I'm not gonna clean
I
my
was gonna
studio.
say 2,000 square feet. I think I would fill it with everything, with crafties galore. I mean, obviously this is the ideal you've got, there going on.
Well, I'm gonna show you. So this is my other wall. It's just um, my books and stuff. On the other side of this, well, is my work. We have a workout room. And then my husband has all his motorcycle parts. Then we have all the tires for all the cars. And then we have all the storage for Christmas, Halloween, all of that. So it's used up.
So
Like
you've never decorated your things and used auto parts for your designs?
well, no, they're not really to be used. He just puts them down here.
I'm just thinking like, what's next, right? In the
I have pulled
inspiration
out some
department here.
I have pulled out some bicycle chains, but they're bulky.
Okay.
I don't know, but I'm thinking, like tail lights. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
use-
All the gears. I don't know.
I
I just
know.
had a vision of seeing your car with beading around the taillights.
Yeah.
Oh God,
You
my
know.
car's so filthy. I'd have to clean
Oh
it
yeah,
better.
the outside. So that
Yeah.
everyone else it was just a random.
Well, remember, didn't Swarovski do the big, it was a Volkswagen or something?
They
It was
did.
was it at Bead and Button?
I think so, one of the years. But then they made little versions of it that they sold as purses.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
That's
cute.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, someone was asking about what is Tyvek, and I think you're talking about the insulation material, building material, right?
Waterproofing, yeah.
Yeah, like if you drive through a neighborhood where there's a new house being built, you'll
Yeah.
see like a white paper. And
Right.
it's the barrier between their part of the house and the
Yeah,
exterior.
outside of the insulation and before you put the siding on, basically.
Yes, exactly.
And it's TYVEK, right?
Yes, they also use a very nice one with hazmat suits for people that work in asbestos. Not so
Oh.
much like in medical labs, but you can buy them on Amazon. So I just go and buy like an XXXL and I cut it up and take the zipper out and take the elastic out and I use that. That's actually very nice Tyvek and it works really well with stitching on it. The needle goes through it very nice and it's soft. The FedEx packages and the priority mailers too. Like if you want to dabble in that, just go buy those or go pick them up at the post office. You can,
Yeah, they're
most of them,
free right in the lobby.
they are. Yeah. And I mean, I got to a point where I was doing so much of it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of rude. And plus it had priority written on the back of it. And, if I'm trying to sell a bracelet with some Tyvek in it and it's got priority on the back of it, it's a little kind of
Well, my
tacky.
husband ended up getting the Tyvek suits you were talking about, the
Mhm.
coveralls.
Yeah.
And they make good bunny rabbit costumes too.
Yes.
Oh, cute.
Because he'd have them for work when he'd work in medical labs. And then
Aw.
they're just considered disposable, so he'd just bring them home.
Yeah, my
Oh.
girlfriend sells to builders and she carries them too. So yeah, just cut them up.
Someone asked about car parts.
Yeah.
Guess what? Since we restored cars for 25 years, I have actually used like screws that are inside of things. And actually, the first thing I used, 66 Corvette headlights tip up and down, and they have a motor to do that. And we had to rewind the motor, and it's called magnetic wire so that it doesn't short out when it touches. And that it is the best wire I have ever worked with. And you can buy spools of it in all different sizes and colors and stuff.
Isn't that fun what we can find? And
And I've used little Christmas lights. I did a bead exchange, and I said I like to use unusual things like you say. And so my partner sent me two of the little tiny Christmas lights, and I made like a trumpet shaped flower and used them as the center of it. And you can use anything.
You can. Yeah. I think we're only limited by, sometimes I don't even think it's our imagination, because most people have pretty good imaginations. It's just limited with you thinking you can't do anything with it, because it's not normal or you don't see it. That was like, and those are the things I learned from being both a trendsetter and the Toho challenges, is you learn to get out of your own way and do things that are like, okay, I have never seen this done before, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be good. And, many times it's not good. I'll admit it. I have a pile of things here that are kind of like, yeesh. Yeah. So, but it's fun to try. Like you said, beating on things. I'm always thinking of kits and numbers. So if it's something I can't get at least 20 of, I'm usually kind of shy away from that because I don't make jewelry just for me to wear. But there's things I definitely keep in the side going, I'm going to do this for me someday. And that was the headband, and now it's a class. There was no intention there. So
So does it seem like work now that you have to do your fun project and pattern
no.
it?
Because I have a lot of time. If I was because I don't have to have these in until like June, the actual product, I think, then it would be, but I mean, sometimes we all know that. Sometimes if you've got a client or a customer that wants a bracelet, and it's fun for like the first 4 days, and then you're like, oh, I'm so over this. But for the most part, I still really like it because I can do it in small increments. If I had to do 8 hours a day, that wouldn't work. I mean,
But you're mountain biking in between and cross country skiing and
yeah, I'm a bit of a goof off. I was like, I couldn't work for myself. I'd fire me.
Sounds like a good life.
It's very nice. Yeah. Well, we didn't move. We first moved, so when we first moved here, and we saw this basement, and I'm like, so in the summer because I had always mountain biked. My own mountain biking, and I go, I can't wait for winter. I'm gonna just work on my studio, and I'm gonna come up with all these designs. I'm gonna have all winter. And, no, it's worse. I got into fat biking. I got into cross country skiing. I got into skate skiing. I am worse in the winter with my time than the summer. So that was an epic fail as far as what I was all going to accomplish of living in somewhere that had a cold winter. So best laid plans. My studio's never been organized.
well, if that's the worst of your troubles, then
Right.
I think you've got it made as far as
I think so too.
the
And
balance.
yeah, and I told my husband we didn't move clean across the country to not enjoy what this state has to offer. So we are definitely doing that.
That's so cool. So cool. So do you have then more the bead retreats coming up? Anything else you've got that you would like to share, events in your future, or
That's it. I attend the Portland Bead Retreat.
oh,
And
okay.
the way they work there, anyone that's an attendee can teach a class, and everybody just donates their time. So I will teach a couple classes for them, but that's kind of just for the people that are at the retreat.
That's
And
how
then
ours are too.
that's what you were
It's
saying.
nice.
It is nice. I was only familiar with the way, Bead and Button worked in Orlando and Lancaster and places like that. So then when I went to Portland, I was like, this is interesting, like, oh, they're not bringing in these instructors, and you're not paying like a fair amount of money, which they're worth it, but you have to budget for that. So I like both sides of it. I like doing the fancy one, and I like doing the where everybody teaches and you learn from the members.
We all learn from each other, and I've certainly learned from other, UMBS members and trendsetters and Toho Challenge. And so I just am so excited. And, it's Kim Leahy is, once again, a new member of our society. So she will be around way more often.
I
So-
know.
so-
The time change is murder for me.
Thank you, Kim. This was really fascinating. And I just want to say my sister lives in Redmond.
Oh,
So I
nice.
go
She's
out
right.
there.
Well, look me up when you come to visit her.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah, she's like 12 miles away.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that would be fun.
Yeah, my sister lived in Bend. I have been there often.
Yeah. So give me a call.
Beautiful
That'd be fun.
territory. Yep, she's a new member, and so look forward to more. And we will definitely tie her down into a bubble wrap. Let's be live. I've
Oh,
definitely
yes.
got
do
that on
that.
the plan. So
Mhm.
we really appreciate you all hanging out. And I'm just gonna
you.
hit